really understand the Supra, you can't just look at the dyno sheets of the Mark IV. You have to go back to the beginning. So, let's pop the hood and dig into everything you need to know about the Toyota Supra. Picture this. It's 1978. Disco is on life support. Bell-bottoms are getting tossed in the trash, and the automotive world is shifting because Japan is absolutely taking over. Datsun was out there completely crushing the US market with their Z-Series. You know, the 240, 260, and 280Z. They were sexy, fast, and people could actually afford them. Meanwhile, Toyota had the Celica. It was a hit, sure. But at the end of the day, it was just a four-cylinder commuter coupe. It simply didn't have the presence or that smooth inline-six grunt to go toe-to-toe with the Datsuns or those American luxury coupes. So, what does Toyota do? They literally took the Celica liftback, grabbed a welding torch, and stretched the nose by exactly 5.1 inches. Why? Just to shoehorn a massive inline-six engine into a bay designed for a four-banger. They launched this Frankenstein creation in Japan in 1978, and it finally landed here in the States in '79 as the Celica Supra. Now, under the hood is where the Supra legend actually begins. It didn't just get any engine. It got the M-Series inline-six, which traces its lineage straight back to the 2000 GT. The first US models, the 4ME, had a 2.6-liter engine putting out just 110 horsepower. I know, a modern Corolla would totally smoke it. But in '79, 110 ponies and 136 pound-feet of torque was respectable. By 1981, for the final year, they bumped it to a 2.8-liter, putting out around 116 horses. It was slow. 0 to 60 took over 10 seconds. It was incredibly smooth, and that was the whole point. People back then loved it too. Motor Trend even gave the Celica range the Import Car of the Year in '78, and this showed Toyota that there was a real market for a six-cylinder GT. But here's the sad truth about the collector market today. This is easily the least loved generation. But let's be real, without this Celica Supra testing the waters, we never would have gotten the monsters that came after it. If the A40 was just dipping its toe in the pool, the A60 was a full-on cannonball. When they dropped this in 1982, it actually lived up to the hype. The styling shifted from soft luxury to a more aggressive stance, with pop-up headlights, which were the universal sign of coolness in the '80s. It was still sitting on the Celica platform though, but you could tell Toyota was starting to push the Supra into its own territory. Toyota did something pretty smart with this generation. They realized not everyone wanted a hardcore sports car, but not everyone wanted a soft cruiser either. So they split the lineup into two, the P-Type for performance and the L-Type for luxury. Under the hood, it had the 5MGE engine. This was a massive evolution over the old engines, finally bringing double overhead cams to the party. Power started at 145 horses and went up to 161 horses by 1985. Now with a 0 to 60 time in the mid-8s, it wasn't exactly a drag race monster, but it was buttery smooth. Paired with a 5-speed manual, it made the A60 a total joy to drive. The biggest game changer though was dropping that clunky live rear axle for a semi-trailing arm independent rear suspension. Suddenly, the Supra could actually take a corner without the chassis getting upset. It was compliant, grippy, and sophisticated. Car and Driver even tested it against a Ferrari 308 in a handling comparison, and it actually held its own. That is definitely not something you could say about the previous model. It's no surprise the A60 was a smash hit. Motor Trend named it Import Car of the Year again in 1982, and it solidified the Supra as a legitimate rival to the Datsun 280ZX and even the Porsche 944. But as the mid-'80s approached, the horsepower wars were starting to heat up. 161 horsepower wasn't going to cut it for much longer. And they knew that if they wanted to stay on top, they were going to need to bring out the big guns for the next round. Everything changed in 1986. Until then, the Celica and the Supra were basically siblings. But then, Toyota decided it was finally time for the Supra to become its own separate thing. And so, for the first time ever, the Supra and Celica split platforms completely. The new A80 Supra now shared its chassis with the Toyota Supra. This split was absolutely crucial because it meant the Supra was allowed to get bigger, heavier, and way more powerful. Now, let's talk about what's under the hood. It came with a 7M GTE, a 3-liter turbocharged inline-six. This thing was pretty powerful. It put out around 230 horsepower and 240 pound-feet of torque, which were serious numbers for its time. With a 0 to 60 time of about 6.4 seconds, it was actually fast in 1987. And then there was the Turbo A. In 1988, Toyota needed to homologate the Supra for Group A touring car racing, so they built 500 special models. It had a modified engine with a larger turbo, and crucially, it ditched the restrictive airflow meter for a map sensor. It made about 266 horses, making it the fastest Japanese car of its day. And also, we can't forget about the late arrival of the 1JZ. Around 1990 in Japan, Toyota dropped the 7M and replaced it with the 1JZ GTE, a 2.5-liter twin-turbo. This engine was far smoother and revved higher than the 7M, with that distinct Yamaha-tuned sound which is just amazing. The A70 honestly feels like a Japanese muscle car. It's comfortable, quiet, and rock-stable at high speeds. It is a grand tourer through and through. But Toyota knew the competition was heating up. To beat the Porsche 911 and the upcoming Honda NSX, they knew the next Supra couldn't just be a fast, heavy cruiser. It had to evolve even further. Here we go, the big one, the Mark IV. The car that basically broke the internet before the internet was even a thing. When they were developing this, the directive was pretty simple: to destroy the competition. Also, they got absolutely obsessive about weight savings. We're talking an aluminum hood, aluminum suspension arms, and an aluminum front crossmember. The result? It was actually lighter than the A70, even though it had bigger tires, bigger brakes, and way more specs. But let's talk about the beast, the 2JZ GTE. Without exaggerating, this is arguably one of the greatest engines ever made. It uses a cast iron block, which is heavy, sure, but it's incredibly strong. The stock setup used sequential turbos, the first one for low-end torque, and the second one staying dormant until about 4,000 RPM. It gave it a linear power band with 320 horses and 315 pound-feet of torque. That over-engineering is exactly why the tuning scene exploded. Tuners realized they could double the horsepower without even opening the engine block. 600 horsepower? Easy. 800? Standard. Throw in forged internals, and you see these things hitting 1,500 plus regularly. It is the undisputed king of the dyno. You can't talk about the 2JZ without mentioning the transmission, the GetRag V160 6-speed manual. This German-built gearbox is a tank. It's noisy, clunky, and rattles at idle, which is totally normal, by the way, but it can hold ungodly amounts of power. And the performance numbers back it up. When Car and Driver tested it in '93, it embarrassed everyone. 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds. The quarter mile in 13.1 at 109 miles per hour. It even pulled nearly 1 G on the skid pad. Finally, we have to address the elephant in the room, the Fast and the Furious. It's funny because before the movie in 2001, the Supra was actually a sales flop. It was too expensive, about $50,000 back in 1996, and the sports car market was dying. Toyota actually killed it in the US in 1998. But after Paul Walker raced that Ferrari, the Supra became a god. Today, a clean manual turbo variant isn't just any car, it's an asset, easily fetching $150,000 to $200,000, maybe even more. For almost 2 decades, the Supra was dead. We had rumors swirling forever. and that gorgeous FT1 concept teased us for years. Then, in 2019, it finally returned. But there was a catch, a big one. Toyota partnered with BMW to build it. So, here's the deal. Building a brand new inline-six engine and a rear-wheel drive platform from scratch is insanely expensive these days. Toyota did the math and realized they simply couldn't make a profit on a low-volume sports car by themselves. BMW, however, is the inline-six champ, so they teamed up. The Supra now shares its platform, engine, transmission, and most of the interior stuff with the BMW Z4. Naturally, enthusiasts went nuclear. Everyone was asking, where's the 2JZ? But the chief engineer at Toyota defended the move. He said that to make a real Supra, you need an inline-six engine, and BMW was the only one making a modern one that met their standards. He argued that once you actually drive it, the specific Toyota tuning shines through. So, under the hood is a B58, a 3-liter turbo inline-six. But is it good? Actually, yes, it's fantastic. It started with 335 horsepower, later bumped to 382 in 2021. But if you look at dyno tests, these things are making nearly 400 horsepower at the wheels. It is vastly underrated from the factory. And for those worried about reliability, Toyota didn't just blindly slap their badge on a German engine. Reportedly, they tore the engine down, identified every weak point, and sent it back demanding changes before they would sign off on it. While it might not sound quite as good as a 2JZ, honestly, nothing does, but it performs like the modern equivalent. Also, for the first 3 years, it was auto-only with the ZF8 speed. People complained loud enough that for 2023, Toyota finally gave in and developed a 6-speed manual option. So, after 40 years, 4 engines, and 1 massive controversy, here is the real question for you guys. Are you Team 2JZ, or do you think the B58 deserves the same love?